Today we talk about the sound of Ghost House. Welcome to FilmRiot, the show that takes mystery out of the effects and techniques. One of your favorite Hollywood films. I'm your host, Ryan Conley, and I say it constantly, sound is one of, if not the most important things to make sure you're getting right on your film. And on Ghost House, it was really pivotal in getting the tone of the scenes down and creating the experience I wanted to give the audience. So today we're taking a look at that with my sound designer, Rob Krekel, and my composer, Daniel James. And again, if you haven't seen the short yet, go here first, and then watch this. The location we shot at was a really old house with a ton of interesting sounds that I knew we'd be able to use, so on our second day of shooting, I went to set before anyone got there so I could have a little time to go around and get some sounds that my sound designer Rob Krekel could use in the final film. To do this, I grabbed my Rode NTG3 and my Rode PG2R pistol grip, which I have connected to my Zoom F8 recorder. I could then roam the house and grab any interesting sound that I came across, like creaking floors and doors, taps and hits, and whatever other weird thing I could find. Of course, Rob recorded a bunch of his own sounds as well, but whenever possible, I like to try to get as much additional sound from our actual location as I can. But once in post, for sound, I always add a temp sound effects track, very similar to using temp music, actually. And I do this so Rob can see what I'm thinking and get the feel of the type of emotion that I'm trying to push for. But after I have a locked edit, I'll export an OMF of my project to send over to Rob.
So when I get the OMF from Ryan, the first thing I do is import it into Pro Tools. And I just take a look at what's there. I listen through the project multiple times just to see what state the production dialogue is in, what kind of handles I have on the clips, what kind of alternate takes I have to work with. And after that, I start dialogue editing. That's usually number one in the process. Clips will come in with gaps in between and little ticks and pops here and there. Sounds of dolly squeaking and doing all these things that you don't want in your dialogue. The process of dialogue editing is removing all those bad sounds and filling in the spots, the blank spots in between the dialogue with what's called fill. Fill is essentially taking room tone that hopefully was recorded on set and copy and pasting it multiple times to kind of fill out the dialogue sequence. Once that's done, I personally like to get into the ambience or backgrounds. That's just sort of, it's the bed for everything else that's going to go on. It helps to glue everything together, and it really can kind of put my head in the space of what I'm trying to achieve with the sound. Once that's complete, I'll usually move into Foley, which is probably the longest process out of all the sound processes. Foley is the art of adding in all the sounds that the characters make on the scene. Normally, in a higher budget film, Foley is performed by a Foley walker. You go to the stage with your picture, and they will walk the whole film. And basically by walk, they basically do all of the character sounds that are required. So that is everything from footsteps to cloth movement to pickups and put downs of props. It's all the non-sound effect sounds in the piece. Being that this is a low budget film, I have to hand edit all that stuff. Thankfully, I have a pretty good library of various sounds for this kind of thing. But it is a very tedious and long process to edit each individual footstep and add a whole track of cloth underneath to kind of support all the different movements. I did record some specific sound for both shorts. In Ghost House in particular, I actually recorded my wife getting in and out of bed for all the scenes in which the females are getting in and out of bed. It just worked the best rather than trying to fake it. Adding in actual human getting into bed with covers and sheets and snuggling in and all that stuff, it just felt right. And so that's what I ended up doing for that, and it just worked so much better. It was a lot less effort trying to find like perfect cloth rustles that might match. It was much easier just to play the picture on my phone and have my wife try to match the movements. That just worked perfectly. Then I'll start in with sound design and sound effects. And so these are the special sounds that really help to tell the story. So this involves any of the weird undulating tones throughout the house, or any of the creaks and squeaks of doors and floorboards, or the presence of the ghostly characters. That stuff all happens during the sound design or sound effects pass. After sound effects are done, then it's really time to mix. It's time to add everything together. You basically pancake it all together in one big session, all the tracks. And this is a process that is shared with the director on almost every project that I've worked on. And that's the way it should be, because ultimately it's the director's vision. And so I get to work with Ryan and kind of have discussions on what is the most important thing or what is best working for a given scene. In Ghost House in particular, we went back and forth a lot on the gas being sprayed all over the house. Like, was it more important that the music was playing there? Was it more important that we heard the gasoline? And ultimately we came to a compromise that I think worked best for the film. And that kind of goes throughout the process. In the beginning of the film, we decided, oh, you know what? The Foley of all the characters walking, all this tedious stuff that I cut, ultimately didn't really work to kind of tell the story. So that stuff all got pulled way, way, way down, and we played the music up more to kind of help bring you in to that beginning, and ultimately it was the right call. Mixing is really the process of finding what the film requires. And it's a process where you have to kind of check your ego and do what's right and what feels right and what ultimately supports the story the best.
To do the final mix, Rob needs the music, of course, which is usually happening at the same time as the sound design, and we're gonna get to the music next after we pay some bills. If you're a budding filmmaker, entrepreneur, innovator, domain.com is a place to go when the next idea hits you. I know that I've said that the list of available domain extensions is growing, but you now have the opportunity to name your site and build your brand in ways that was never before possible. Choose from a growing list of 400+ domain name extensions like .com, .org, .design, and .net. And to show you some love, they're giving you 25% off their already affordable prices when you get domain names, web hosting, and email. Just use the coupon code FilmRiot at domain.com's checkout. When you think domain names, think domain.com.
Logo.
To get right back into music, I personally always use a temp score, which has been demonized recently, and I just think that's ridiculous and insulting to composers, and it ignores the fact that the examples that are usually used to make their point are from iconic music that were made for films that use temp scores. But I digress. Again, once the cut is locked, I shoot Daniel a video with just production sound and temp sound effects attached, and then I send over the temp score completely separate.
So once Ryan sends me the film, I download it, and normally I'll convert into a smaller file, so he'll send me the high quality video, but usually when working on a single system like I do, the bigger file size, can slow the machine down. So I convert it to a smaller file size and I import it into my DAW, which is the piece of software that you write music in. For this film specifically, for both films, I used a piece of software called Cubase. So what I'll do is I'll drag the film into Cubase and then I'll put it in the timeline, and then I'll go through and I'll look for the hit points. So the parts of the film where me and Ryan have discussed that I need to accent certain elements. So maybe like a character falls down, a character runs off shot. So what I'll do is I'll pinpoint those in the timeline, and then what I do is I'll watch the scene back and I kind of get a feel for the tempo of the scene. So you'll look there and you'll imagine some music, and you kind of get a rough tempo of what you want it to be. You figure out what that is, and then you enter that into the sequence. So once you've got that lined up with the tempo, you will then, in Cubase, you have a function where you can actually drag where the hit points are on the timeline, and it will adjust the tempo to match. So once you have your cue in and your tempo markers set up, you then go about the actual process of writing music for the picture. So in order to write music in a DAW, you can either use live instruments, live players, or you can use sample instruments, or sample libraries they're called. And how you do that, so you have a piece of software, a plugin for any DAW, it's universal. It's called Contact by Native Instruments. And what this does is it basically allows you to load the sounds of various instruments, be it violin, brass, drums, and you load the sounds into this sample playback engine, this sampler, and it allows you to play those instruments across a MIDI keyboard. So someone's taken the time to record every single note on a violin, and so when you push a D note on a keyboard, you're hearing a D violin or a D brass, or a percussion hit. So what you'll do is you'll watch the film back, and normally before I'll start, I've started composing, Ryan's told me what he wants me to actually do in the scene. So as I was mentioning before with those hits, we would have discussed what the music needs to feel like and why we're hitting these things, how we build to them, how we decrescendo out of them. So then once we've got those, I know what this particular part is supposed to feel like. I'll then load in the samples which best suit that scene. So, if it's a dramatic moment, maybe I'll lean on some strings and piano. Well, there wasn't much of that in these films. It was mostly death and destruction. Well, there was not much death, but anyway, a lot of destruction. So, I wanted lots of nasty string sounds and lots of nasty brass. So I have sample libraries of those types of sounds being recorded. So I would load those in, and then I would play around with different themes, different textural elements, which I felt portrayed what Ryan wanted for the film. And then I would play those in. Get like like a rough score together, and then I will place it out and I'll fill out the entire scene. So then what I do is I'll do like a rough mix. So that's where I'm using things like EQs, compressors, reverb, all these types of effects to make the mix of these sample libraries, which are usually recorded in completely different environments, completely different sound setups. I'll use these EQs to basically balance the sound so that it sounds like they're all recorded and they're all part of one unified piece of music. Once I have that in place, I will render it out, I'll send it back to Ryan, and then he will tell me it's
Logo. And that's it for today. The track that we used in today's episode came from Music Bed again, and if you dug it, you can check it out in the links in the notes below, and I'll see you next week when I shoot the hair off of a bear's ass.
How good does that sound? This is a new...